Since I don't know a lot about you, and my readers probably aren't familiar with you, so I was just hoping you would start with a little bit of background on yourself and why you decided to run. And is this your first campaign? And if so, why did you decide to run for Congress as your first campaign?
Yeah, some background on me is I grew up in Ottumwa, Iowa, and then I moved to Johnson County 7 years ago. And a lot of the reason I am running is looking back at my hometown. For people that don't know, Ottumwa is one of the poorest cities in the state. It's a town where the people, struggle is just a way of life. And Marinette Miller-Meeks is actually from the Ottumwa too, and she sees the same things I see, and she turned her back on those people. And yeah, this is the first time I'm running for office. It is something that I had considered before, and I'd always, figured I would definitely start smaller. But we're at a point in history where we have a president flirting with dictatorship, and we have too many representatives that are scared to call him out on that. And worse than scared, we have some that are just actively cheering him on. And we're at this point where if you're not resisting him, you're not just complacent with what's going on, you're complicit. And we need representatives that are going to resist at every corner.
Mhm. You kind of preempted the question I was going to ask, which is, did you think about maybe starting with a city council race or state legislature, something like that, before going straight to Congress?
Yeah. There were times in my life where I considered that. Uh, the hardest part for a lot of those is the fact that I do have to work a 9 to 5 job. And, it's not something I can afford to take off to go to sessions
Mm-hmm.
or to, like, my mindset on anything is if I'm going to do something, I want to do it right.
Hmm.
And if I were to start with like a state office, I'd miss so many meetings. I would feel like I wasn't doing my district justice
Hmm.
and I wouldn't deserve that honor.
Hmm.
So this is definitely a big step. Uh, but it's something that I feel like what everything boils down to in government is who you stand for, what you think is right, what you think is wrong, and who you're going to fight for. I don't feel like when you look at smaller offices and bigger offices that there's a huge difference, just
Hmm.
a bigger picture.
Hmm.
But, if I started smaller, I'd be doing the same thing I plan on doing in Washington, which is fighting every day for the average person. And the only difference is I will also be occupied, probably actively defending our democracy against a rogue president.
Have you been involved like as a volunteer before or precinct captain, or have you done any or knocking on doors, anything like that before for campaigns?
Yeah. During Bernie's campaign, I did some volunteering where I did phone banks a few times, and then I also did do door to doors, and also basically just actively spread the word
Hmm.
when he was going to be around and when he posted stuff. And I felt like with Bernie, especially, my biggest responsibility was just explaining his policies to like friends or family that might not fully understand what he is saying, but basically boiling it down to progressive means good for the average person.
Hmm.
And I feel like that was my biggest responsibility when he was running. Uh, yeah, so I volunteered. I haven't got to as much as I would like with working,
Hmm.
but it's definitely something I always enjoyed.
I was just asked because looking at your website, I did hear echoes of Bernie there with the people-powered campaign and the getting corporate money out of politics and the healthcare as a human right. So I was just wondering if you had been active. And obviously, Bernie did very well in Johnson County. Other parts of the district, he did, well in some counties and not well in others. So what would you say to Democrats who may not have been Bernie supporters about why they should consider supporting you in the primary?
Um, yeah, that's honestly something that a lot of people might think is a hard thing to answer, but it's not. The Democrat Party right now, we're facing record low popularity, despite the fact that we have a president, defying the Constitution on a near daily basis. We still are struggling with our popularity and how people see us. So we can't just be the party that says, hey, we're not Trump. We have to actively take this chance to be truly different. We have to take this chance to get back to our roots of being the party for the working person, being the party for the underprivileged, and fighting on policy, not just pointing fingers.
Mhm.
It's coming down to the fact that we're running out of time to really change the perspective of how people look at us, because as scary as it sounds, we might be running out of elections, and we have to take this chance to resist and truly make a statement that we're going to fight back and we're going to stand for the people that we should have been all along.
Mhm. Can you tell me a little bit about how things have been going so far? It's been about 3 weeks since you launched with a
Mm-hmm.
digital ad, and what's the response been? How have you been out doing any in-person events, or how
Mm-hmm.
are things going this month?
Yeah, things have been going great. I'm still struggling with Facebook allowing me to run ads. So basically, everything I've been doing is in person.
Hmm.
So I get off work at 5. Generally, I get off work, eat dinner, and then until 8 p.m., I'm out knocking doors after work.
Hmm.
And then every weekend, I'm either at rallies or meetings, or holding mini town halls of my own. So it was this Saturday. I actually went to Sigourney, Iowa,
Hmm.
which is in one of the reddest counties in the state,
Hmm.
because I want to go to places like that where I'm going to be challenged. I want to face Republicans, because right now, one of the biggest gripes a lot of people in this district has is Marinette Miller-Meeks is nowhere to be found.
Hmm.
Like, she'll come to town for her, or not to town, but to the district for the photo ops. But other than that, she's nowhere,
Hmm.
and she won't talk to her constituents. She won't listen to anything from anybody. And I want to go to the reddest parts of the state and say, you're not going to agree with me on social issues, and I'm not going to lie and say you will, but I am going to fight for you on your rights to, like, a fair life, and to, be a worker that's actually valued by your corporation instead of just walked on.
Hmm.
So, yeah, unfortunately, it's Sigourney. I can't really say unfortunately. I didn't really get any pushback. Everybody there was great. They loved hearing my ideas. They were very supportive. Um, yeah,
So
so it
did you
did.
plan an event, or did you just go down there and go to the town square and talk to people?
I planned an event in Sigourney. I
Okay.
rented the meeting room in the library.
Hmm.
Uh, right now, my campaign funds are not actually, not exactly pouring in,
Right.
but but the little things like that I can do are
Hmm.
what I'm doing. And yeah, so it turned out really well. And going door to door, I've had a few conversations with some people that as soon as they hear the word Democrat, they look like they want to slam that door shut in my face.
Hmm.
But then, somebody told me recently, you don't learn anything from talking. So
Hmm.
I told those people, tell me what's bothering you, like what's scaring you in this climate, and what I can do to help you. Because, like I said earlier, I'm not going. We're not going to agree on social issues, but I feel like we have to move past the distractions, because, you know, trans kids playing soccer is not as scary as your family not having dinner.
Right.
And that's the talks I'm having with people. And I've actually had a couple people that told me that, they'll, consider filing as an independent and come back and talk to them again.
Hmm.
So, just getting people to listen can be a challenge, but I'm not scared of the confrontation of people telling me, I see it, I hear at times, they hear Democrat, they think communist, they think that you just want to tax the crap out of them.
Hmm.
And when I did launch this campaign, I knew I was going to hear that. And I'm not scared to try to talk to people about how wrong they are.
Hmm. I we don't know for sure, but I think most people expect that Christina Bohannon is going to run again. So in the primary, I mean, what's your case to Democrats about why they should support you? She came very close to winning this last time. And what would be your case? Or do you plan to not really make a case against her, but just make an affirmative case for yourself?
So that's something I'm doing a lot of this, grassroots and on passion. But that is one of the things that I have talked to experienced legislators about how I can make a case from how I, am different than her without giving Republicans talking points.
Hmm.
So yeah, the thing I plan on focusing on is she has that classic politician story of I had a tough childhood, so I can relate to you, but you're a multimillionaire now. You can't relate to the struggle. You don't know what it's like facing adversity in this age where we're going through one of the biggest economic crises in generations.
Hmm.
And the case is going to be, I can actually relate to you people. I understand the struggle because I'm in it. And when I'm in Washington, I'm going to be fighting for my family that's struggling too. And I'll say this right now, if she does run and she wins the primary, I'm going to absolutely do everything I can to help her get elected because we can't just stick around with Marinette Miller-Meeks.
Hmm. Hey, Marinette Miller-Meeks has a primary, so it
Mm-hmm.
could end up being David Pouch for all we know, but
Yeah, and somehow he's worse.
even more,
It's,
even more Trump supporting.
yeah, he's somebody that thinks she's not doing enough to support the wannabe dictator.
Is there anything that I didn't ask that you think is important for people to know about you or about your campaign, or just things that you care about?
Yeah, so one of the things that might be different from me than including Christina Bohannon and a lot of other candidates at this point in their campaigns, I've already wrote multiple bills that I'm going to turn in on day one and fight for on day one.
Hmm.
uh, one of them, which I submitted to Howie Klein, who's one of the co-founders of Blue America and one of the
Hmm.
original AOC supporters, and he told me this is an excellent piece of legislation, and he asked me if he could publish it. And he knows the other ones. He told me they're all amazing, and I'm not just going there to be a placeholder. It's like I'm going there to be a problem for the people that have broke our country
Hmm.
and are trying to take away our democracy. So if I do go there, I'm going with a plan and I'm going there to fight on day one.
I did see the post on Down with Tyranny, but just for the benefit of my readers who haven't seen it, if do you want to describe a little bit about that bill that he published?
Yeah. So the bill that Howie asked if he could publish was a healthcare reform bill, which is, to a lot of people, when they see this and they read what's included, they're going to say, how do we pay for this? And all it takes is a 10% wealth tax on the richest people in this country who can afford it. And then it's going to make it so Americans don't ever have to struggle with healthcare costs, that they don't have to worry about going bankrupt or choosing between healthcare and or dying. I mean, I worked in hospitals for about 12 years now, and I've seen people leave hospitals because they say I can't afford that, and against doctors, next to begging them to stay, they leave.
Hmm.
And that was one of the saddest things you can see, as somebody accepting the fact that they're going to suffer because they can't afford this. Uh, so yeah, it has the out of pocket maximum for anybody with any insurance is $2,000 a year,
Hmm.
and if you're significantly under the poverty line, you're not going to have an out of pocket, because the richest people in this country can afford to help us when they've been, preying on our tax system for decades, when they've been taking advantage of us and they've never paid their fair share. They can afford to keep people alive. And it's something that I definitely will fight for, because it's disgusting to live in a country this rich where people choose death over debt. And in a less, significant personal story, when I was in high school, I broke my foot, and the doctor told me that I had two choices. I could do surgery and it might heal right, but or I could just let it go, and there'll always be times I walk with a limp. But I chose to not have the surgery and just deal with the limp for the rest of my life, because I couldn't stand the thought of my mom going into debt you know, to solve a problem that I caused by breaking my foot.
Mm.
So even as a kid, I understood that this struggle wasn't right and that nobody should leave a hospital without the best care they can get because they're scared of cost. That is unacceptable in the richest country in the world. So that's just,
Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I don't want to cut you off if there are more things you want to talk about
oh
either.
no, I'm sure that I'll have more to talk about in the future. But really, I thank you for reaching out to me and giving me this time.